So why do we value human beings according to their financial or material worth? Why is it that we say things like, "What is its worth?" Or "This person is worth X amount of money." Why do we do that? And what are the consequences of us reducing human beings to material things? How does that affect us as a society or as a community or as a country? What an effect that have in the society? Well, that's what I want to talk about right now. Thank you for paying attention. My name. Okay, my name is Father Aloysius or Father Al. I am here in Casco Viejo. I mentioned it in the other video that I shot. Casco Viejo in Spanish simply means old quarter or old quarters. Um, I'm here because it's a place that I love very, very much. It has one of the most beautiful views, but I want to talk about this place. Um, this place was the place that the colonial master, the Spaniards, settled when they arrived in this region. This is not the first place that they settled in this country. They settled somewhere up north where they called Panama Viejo. But then they came here and they built this beautiful place. For whatever reason, it was eventually abandoned. And I suspect, and from what I hear from people, that as the poor people began to move into this area, they became uncomfortable and eventually it was abandoned. But nonetheless, it continues to be the center of governance because the governor still, I mean, the president still lives here. But my big question, and this is something that bothers me, and this is something that you see again and again in many, many countries of the world, where once poor people begin to move in, people begin to move out in those areas. You see that in the United States, you see that in many other countries, where people cannot live with people who are lower than them. And so that's what happened here. The people who established here eventually began to move out as poor people began to move in. And that raises the question, why do we do that? Well, the simple reason that people often give is that when poor people move in, the cost and the value of the properties drop. The cost and the financial values of the properties drop. And so, because money is so important for the wealthy and for a lot of people in the world, and it's more important than human beings, uh, for for many places, people will just simply pack and leave and abandon that place for the poorer people. The second reason why people do that is because of class. Um, there's something that happened in my country when the colonial masters, and I say this because I don't think it just happens in any particular country. Nobody has monopoly over this. This is just human behavior that is very, very common around the world. In my country, when the missionaries arrived, they realized that the local place, people, there's a place called Asaba, very close to my own state, has they had servants. Some people might even call them slaves, but I wouldn't really call them slaves. They had servants. And when the missionaries arrived, they began to teach catechism to these servants of these other bigger households. And after some time, they built a mission, they built a church, and they started inviting the local people to attend the church. And they invited the chiefs who owned servants before the arrival of the colonial, so-called colonial masters, and also the local wealthy people. So they began to invite them to come to the mission. And a lot of them would not come to the mission because the argument was, how can we sit with our servants? How can we sit in the same congregation with our servants? And that's part of the reason why there is this always exodus. every time that poorer people, or people who are lower class in the society began to move in, people begin to move out. So that's what happened here. They built this beautiful, beautiful place, and as the poor people began to move in Casco Viejo, in Panama, a lot of people moved out. So for decades, this place was abandoned. It was abandoned, and the houses fell in disrepair. They became dilapidated. Nobody visited here. It was also infested by crime and all kinds of things until recently, because it's such a strategic place. It's such a breathtaking, beautiful place. They figured out that they could turn this into a tourist attraction. So suddenly it became valuable. The properties became valuable, even though it had been abandoned, even though it had been occupied by poorer people. And so companies began to buy all this place. The government invested millions and millions of dollars into reviving and resuscitating and renovating and restoration, as they call it here in Panama, of Casco Viejo. Now, there are consequences. Remember what I said? The poor people were living here. When this project started, those poor people were still here. Then what do you do with them? Your guess is right. They had to be flushed out. They had to be pushed out. Some I was talking to one of the locals. He said they necesitaba sacarlos, quitarlos. In other words, they needed to be moved away. The point was there was no plan for those poor people, and that created a lot of homelessness. That created a lot of more and more poverty for people who have nothing. People have nothing. And now, because this place has become a tourist attraction, thousands of people come here every day, a year. If you come to Panama and say, where can I go for sightseeing? The number one place they will mention, even before they mention the Panama Canal, is Casco Viejo. So it's now worth millions and millions of dollars. And therefore, who have to pay the price? The people who are living here. Well, it's called gentrification. It goes on everywhere in the world. But what I want to say from a Catholic point of view, from social Catholic social teaching point of view, is that we cannot value human beings according to their financial worth. Human beings are made in the image and likeness of God. They cannot be reduced to material things. Regardless of their race, regardless of their gender, regardless of their sex, we cannot reduce human beings according to material worth. And if there's any institution that must scream and be very stubborn and tenacious about defending the poor, it is the Catholic Church. When I went here, I discovered something. The first college or university that was built in this country were built by the Catholic Church. It was built by the Jesuits, and I'll put the pictures of the place. It's now in ruins. Um, I don't know what eventually happened, why it closed down, or whether it was part of the abandonment of the place, because obviously the poor people could not afford to go to such a university, and the wealthy people were living. It seems it makes sense for the university to be closed down, which begs a larger question. How can we, as a church, stubbornly maintain ministry to the poorest of the poor? Regardless, I know that as I speak in India, the government of India is trying to shut down foreign money from coming to the Sisters of Charity, the Sisters of Mother Teresa. So that means thousands and thousands of people who are getting benefit from them are not going to be able to get it. So the question is, how do we, as a Catholic Church, um, maintain, like Jesus Christ, that focus on taking care of the poor and the helpless? Remember when he wanted to, people were hungry and didn't have money to go, they have no place to go. And the apostles told Jesus to ask them to go somewhere else and find something to eat. Jesus said, no. He said, give them something to eat yourself. And eventually they were able to acquire some bread and fish from somebody and they multiplied it. I think that is a model for the Catholic Church, that we must be able to know how to get money from those who have it and make it available for those who do not have it. What I mean by make it available is make a service that they will need available for those who need it. I think that's one of my reflections about this place. They've done a good job of restoration. I really want to talk a little bit about that, but just something always that struck me. I went inside there. A lot of the poor people have been pushed to really, really, really one corner. I have quite a good number of homeless people who have no money. And I asked one of the guys there, he said, if I tell you stories, you'll cry. And I'm not saying this because I'm a black guy, but I think also a lot of the majority of the people that were affected were also blacks. Um, and so as a community, as a country, we have to do better. I think there's something else I'd like to say before I finish this reflection. I don't believe it. I do not for one second believe that any country, including all the superpowers of the world, can attain the fullness of their potential if they keep valuing human beings according to financial worth. We can, unless we recognize human beings in their full dignity and their full worth, especially the most vulnerable, no country can attain its full potential. There could be an ephemeral, or if you like, artificial power and growth. Over time, it's going to be a bubble, and the bubble is going to burst, as we've seen with many, many empires of the world. And so we have to learn to value people who are made in the image of and likeness of God according to their dignity and worth. Unless we do that, we're not complete as a society, as a people, as a country, as humanity. That's very intense. Thank you so much for listening, and God bless you. I'll see you in the next video.